Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well and having a good time. And obviously, this evening we have gathered together here to do our second round of Jaquar Design Confab, which is a multiple city roadshow. And ITP India and Jaquar Group have partnered together to co-create this meaningful and a credible platform. Here we're going to discuss something very interesting, and we have lined up some amazing profiles of speakers who need no introduction. And one such legendary architect who's going to be our guest of honor is none other than architect Canna Patel. He has very kindly agreed to be with us, and we will have a session in conversation with Mr. Mohit Hajela on that. But before that, ladies and gentlemen, it's some of the hygiene factors that one does. In spite of so many webinars that you and I have all been attending, but I tend to go back to the basics. I think please, whenever you have a question, please shoot it in the Q&A. Anything that you want to ask, please raise your hand, and I think me and my team are there to always take it up. So ladies and gentlemen, without wasting any further time, I want a very important conversation here, and that's this architect Canna Patel with Mr. Mohit Hajela.
Good evening, viewers. On behalf of Jaquar Group and ITP Media, it is absolutely a pleasure to welcome you all to Jaquar Design Confab, celebrating its digital presence. The second episode of this webinar series, Preservation of Local Heritage and Flavor in Architecture, will shine the spotlight on Vadodara, a city that is steeped in tradition and history, yet transforming fast and as a modern urban center celebrating hybrid heritage. But first, let's go back to history a little. After all, who will beg to differ that history of a region or a city is etched in stone? On the banks of Vishwamitri River brims with heritage. The enduring architecture from India's medieval and modern periods is testimony to the progressiveness of the city. Various rulers, particularly while it was the capital of erstwhile princely state of Baroda. The city passed through the hands of the Gupta, Rashtrakuta and Solanki dynasties, was held by the sultans of Delhi and Gujarat, and then the Mughals, before coming to the Gaikwads of Gujarat. The most celebrated span of Gujarat coming under the Gaikwads. So before it was being claimed by the Marathas, and then eventually the Gaikwad dynasty in the 1720s. The legacy of the Gaikwad rulers was firmly established by the popular and visionary ruler Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad III, who transformed Baroda into an educational, industrial, and commercial center with thriving art and architecture. Bringing the context to today's discussion, preservation of local heritage and flavor in architecture brings to fore several dimensions where the real challenge lies in the insertion of new architecture into the historic urban fabric that should be seen and treated as the means for the heritage preservation. In such sensitive urban areas, new architecture cannot be based on mere requirements of functionality or the aesthetic taste. The issues of contextuality and visual integrity of the historic environment should be regarded. The main challenge, needless to say in this case, is to find the middle path between radically contrasting modernist insertions and neo-historicisms, directly repeating the historical forms, and to secure continuity and evolution of historic urban fabric. Taking our conversation forward, joining me today is a legendary name in the field of architecture and interior design, coming with more than 30 years of professional experience, completing her bachelor's from CEPT Ahmedabad and a master's from UC Berkeley. She is founder and chairperson of HCP Interior Design Private Limited, and needless to say, I'm talking about the much acclaimed architect Canna Patel. Absolutely a pleasure having you, Canna, on board today. Canna has worked on more than 300 projects, including corporate offices, retail, showroom, private residences, health clinics, and government institutional buildings. She is presently serving as interior sub-consultant for the prestigious Central Vista project in New Delhi. Bringing the spotlight to you straight, Canna, I have the first question for you. As someone who has had considerable exposure to the West over the years, how have you managed to restrict its influence on your design thinking? Could you highlight your design philosophy and how it makes room for Indianness in design? Over to you, Kana.
Thank you, Mohitji. Well, I must first say that you established a fantastic connection with Vadodara, all the history. I have a small history to talk about. I connect to Vadodara because both my parents, Hasmukh Bhai and Bhakti Ben, they both studied at MSU in Baroda in that fantastic historical building. And so we've always heard of Vadodara ever since we were kids and had lots of vacations in Vadodara. So my connect to Vadodara is pretty high in terms of actually a one-to-one level, having been there several times, and I still go there. Coming to the question about my upbringing and all the Western influences, you're quite right. The Western influence was very strong. I had a father who studied in Cornell. Our home atmosphere was very Western. And I grew up with all that around me. And it was a modernist home that I grew up in. Very modern, as you called, a very modern insertion. While growing up, what was interesting was there was various aspects of India which were embedded into our life. So one of the biggest one was that I danced Indian classical dance for 17 years. And that really sort of...
This aspect we didn't know. This is so interesting.
Yes, that was quite a training. And I think that training helps me in other ways as well, because it's a discipline you get into and it's a rigorous way that you work. And the standard stamina, very high stamina. So that helped. To add to it, overall, the atmosphere at home in terms of relations, family, attitude to food, climate was very connected to India. So though we would be sitting on a table with Marimiko mats, but on the other hand, the food there would be a Gujarati thali. So it was a continuous reminder that, India, that we are from here, we belong here, and we celebrate here. That was always emphasized as I was growing up. So keeping that, as I studied architecture, there was, again, CEPT, which exposed us to a lot of Western thoughts, Western architects, designers. But somehow the love for India remained, because there were many aspects of India which were important. The color that we all know, that the world knows, and we always thought that I don't want to forget that. Then we had things like fragrances from India. My favorite fragrances are things like Mogra, Jui, Rajnigandha. I still love them, and I kind of like to incorporate them in any way that I can in my life or in my professional life. One grew up accepting the order we have in chaos, the kind of traffic we have, and we still kind of live with it. You don't complain about India. And then finally, I would say that while all this was happening, one always remembered the diversity, the economic diversity in India. One never, even if I were in a privileged position, one never forgot that there is the variation that one has to accept that is in India. And all your decisions should be based on looking at all the various people. So I would say that in so many ways, this whole aspect of Indianness was embedded in us. And then with that, when I started practicing, I've been working now for 30 years, I realized that if we don't keep a continuity with the past and a link into the future, our work will not be contextual, and hence it may not be timeless. So to continuously search for this aspect was something that I kind of focused on as I went along in my practice with each project. It wasn't as if I went looking for it, but with each project, one was evolving, changing, thinking. And in short, I would say that we discovered, and I would call it discovered because, like I said, I didn't start with it. We discovered that we don't believe in forms and shapes. Our inspiration comes from the intangible elements of this country, and those are embedded in the country. And we feel that maybe it's those intangible aspects is what provides the timelessness quality to our work. So I would like to share what these elements are. So the first one is voluntarily simple. Now, where did one learn this aspect? And one learned this from the saris of India. The saris of India can be worn in many different ways. Many different kinds of women can wear it, right from the fat, the thin, the tall, the short. And there are 101 variations in which you can drape a sari. Now, if you take that understanding and take it to projects, you can think in that manner, that you can use few materials and use it in a various way. You can have a fairly bare and simple environment and still call it complete. You can have a low budget and still, that simplicity still can come out in a powerful way. The second one is soliciting sensory experience. What do I mean by it? I don't know if you've been to Varanasi and you've seen the aartis in the morning. They are amazing.
Amazing, no doubt.
And it kind of leaves almost goose pimples on your arms. And that's India for us. It's a sensorial experience. Now, if you think that that's Indian, you try to look for that quality or that kind of experience or embed that into your work. And I think India has many such examples, but that should be your way of inspiration to take it into your work. And you can then see that some of the projects you enjoy it for the sensuous quality and not necessarily just the shapes or forms or the colors or the textures. The third quality is comfortable with ambiguity. What do I mean by it? There are trains in India, they come. But when that train reaches which place is always ambiguous in India. You don't know that when, and yet as Indians, we live with it and we still use those trains. That means there is some joy in ambiguity. And one took that intangible aspect and embedded in some of the works where some things are unexplained. They are there in the project. And that leaves that level of little magic, secret, whatever you call it. People can unveil it on their own. The fourth one is following intuition. Now, we've seen all the chaotic traffic in India. We all learn to drive in those streets. You can't drive if you're not intuitive. As an Indian, we know how to drive by looking in the front, back, side, always, and still don't manage to bash into anybody. That quality of intuition, if you can keep it as you design projects, not everything has to be rational and logical. Some things have to be left to emotions, left to just a little thought. And I think that is what would create a beautiful quality in the project. The last one is a little simpler, and it talks about romanticizing with nature. We've seen banyan trees in India, and kids jump from one branch to the other using those roots that come out, and the exhilaration that it provides. And we need to have environments which incorporate nature, where even when I do interiors, I try to see how I can bring the nature in. I don't mean by just a potted plant, but almost like celebrating the nature to create spaces that will incorporate those views. So with that, I would say that these are the 5 key things that we like to bring into our projects And that's the design philosophy that HCPID follows. And like I've always said, you don't go looking for it. It's always there in India. It's at every street corner. You have to find your own. Sometimes even silence speaks. And that's the way to take it forward. So in a nutshell, that's my design philosophy, if I've answered your question.
No, great, great. Once an Indian, always an Indian. I mean, I can say it with a pinch of salt, and but again, I think all said and done. I mean, we are definitely a strength. India may have its own fair share of idiosyncrasies, as anywhere in the world. Everyone has, but needless to say, we are one of the most thriving democracies in the world. And even with our own share of all those things falling in line, we still tend to exist as a nation, doing brilliant. And surely, I'm sure and I was quite intrigued to hear about the day or dimension of a sari. How do you look at different colors, different people? I'm sure ethnicity, everything coming into the fold together. Very well said. Now, I think I'd like to pose a different question to you, since we talk about it so much. What is the significance of context in architecture and design? Would you agree that staying true to a site's context helps in creation of timeless design?
Absolutely. Because when I say timeless, every country has its own timelessness. So the timelessness in India is not the same one in Thailand. It's a common concept. So if you're doing something in India, you will do contextual to what is around in India, in the surroundings in India, amongst the people of India, in the Indian economy. So it's not just the physical context. It is many different aspects of the concept that we need to kind of bring it in. And therefore, I think that if you want timelessness, you need to understand every aspect of it: the political, the economical, the climate, the heritage, the history, the people, demographics, everything. Have I answered?
Thank you so much. I think that answers it beautifully, and I'm so happy. I'm looking forward to a wonderful pool of panelists from Vadodara waiting for us, and I'm looking forward to a very engaging session with all of them. I mean, we have the finest designers from the city of Vadodara today, and I would like to ask my friend Bibhor Srivastava to come and lead us into the discussion room along with the top of the line designers from the city of Vadodara. Thank you so much, Canna. It's always a pleasure interacting with you. And all knowledge forums, I think at the end of the day, we are all there to celebrate legacy. We're all there to celebrate inclusion of modern designs being blended into it. India is a nation that talks of diversity, it talks of ethnicity, and I'm sure all the designers in the country are making us proud. How much we can design in context is again a wonderful topic, and we'll have more deliberations with other panelists. Thank you so much, Canna. Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mohit. Thank you for inviting me here.
No, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
What do I say? Absolutely devout, and of course, I'm a very, very big fan of Canna Patel. And I think viewers would have simply loved it. That was indeed an enriching dialogue, leaving us with ample food for thought. A heartfelt thank you, Canna, for providing such a unique perspective on the subject and setting the context for the panel discussion to follow. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will move on to panel discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, we start the panel discussion, but let me introduce the panel topic and our wonderful panelists with me this evening. The panel topic is preservation of local heritage and flavor in architecture. Very relevant, very apt. And with me on the panel today is Rahul Dalvi, co-founder Rahul Dalvi Associates. Welcome, Rahul. Absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Dipen Gada, principal designer and founder, Dipen Gada and Associates. Welcome all the way, Dipen from Kerala, that you are there. And thank you for taking time out. I know the connectivity is the challenge, but I'm glad to see you here. And then we have Mr. Mayur Shah, proprietor, MSA India. Welcome, Mayur Bhai. Welcome. And then we have Hitesh Modi, founding partner, Modi and Associates. Welcome, Hitesh Bhai. And then we have Mr. Dharam Patel, founder, Art and Architecture Associates. Welcome, Dharam. And he's also a very avid photographer. And audience, we will certainly be looking forward some real visual treat from him. And then we have this young lady, Ruchika Sahai, Regional Manager, Business Development, Jaguar Group. So I think that's a wonderful panel. Delighted to have that. And on the topic, today's topic is one that strikes a chord with each of us. We are all lamenting the fact that Indian contemporary architectural structures often lack a sensitivity to local context, climate, and heritage. We have thoughtfully put together today's panel from a city that has a rich architectural history so as to pose this question to them and to understand how they approach this issue. To begin with, I'll just try to summarize the question, and for the interest of our viewers there, to get a perspective from each of the panel members. And Rahul, while I come first to you, the question is, why is it so imperative that we preserve a design heritage? And what are the ways in which we can create more contextually relevant structures that incorporate the local ethos, materials, and crafts? So, Rahul, if you could take this one up, and then I can subsequently move to other friends of mine. Yes, Rahul.
Sure, I think so. In order to explain myself well, if I can share my screen and
yes.
Probably, so no wonder old is gold, and we should realize how lucky we are to be in one of the world's most ancient civilizations, I would say. Humans move to the next stage from the last invention and don't waste very researching from scratch. And so when you have some already proved context in place, our age-old structures are no more than 100, 200, 500 years old, have tested time and still stand tall. Isn't it obvious? We take cues and lessons from them and further improvise with present technological advancement to move ahead. In olden times, due to travel and transport limitations, local with time, man traveled with Mahal, which got built by Makrana marble from Rajasthan, pulled by elephants all the way. Hence, we have a white marble amidst a red stone city. Hence, one may debate that Taj was non-contextual structure of its time, as it used material that was non-local. But other than that, it was a local craftsmanship and design for sure. With time, man traveled abroad, got marveled at their thought process, and to stand apart and be different, he used their thought process. And so is born a city like Baroda, which was envisaged by Sir Sayaji Rao and built on thought process of architect Robert Chisholm, who chiseled most of our grand structures that we are proud today. This is built in an Indo-Saracenic style with local material and local masons, but on a blueprint, or sometimes an exact replication of structures done in United Kingdom. But all structures seem relevant as material and workmanship remained local, and so were weather conditions that remain respected. All buildings built then do showcase perfect collaboration of two styles of architecture, but today country boundaries are faint and trade for material too progressive to be overlooked. In today's world, being relevant and contextual is a challenge and needs great maturity to shun temptations similar to saying no to junk food. Great masters use their signature style different, but not at the cost of context relative to its weather, wear and tear, and other cultural parameters. We may see no context of their creations with the city they are built in, but that is precisely why these masters have been appointed. But their designs are made with enough maturity to withstand time and remain strong and tall. Being Indian or being local or using local material is more a fashion these days than an intention, and can be known when you see a Kota stone floor, plush Italian furniture. Everything is right in this fusion world when you combine what you want and then publicize on top of your voice to get it accepted as a piece of art. All is good. I think all is good to build on a clean slate with no context, as what one would say about Dubai, or to make relevant creations with some context like Louvre, for example, but only time shall test what is logical and functional, but by then damage would have already happened. Mimicking heritage structures without improvisation isn't progress. Time is constant and changes are natural. Hence, architecture as well is expected to be organic. Sticking to same ancient methods, ignoring technological advancement is the safest, but the most gross way of respecting heritage. I think before that's my take. That's my on what we may say as restoring heritage, not going back, but moving forth by maintaining the fabric, which becomes, you can say, not a limitation, but as a guiding force for what we can create new. Thanks.
Very well. Excellent, Rahul. Would you please stop sharing the screen as I can get it to the other? panel member. I think very aptly put, and what beautiful way you summed it up in so very limited time. And let me just bring in, can I get Mayur Shah in? Mayur, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, as very correctly Rahul explained about the old heritage and the old part of architecture which is prevailing presently without any, we can say, misinterpretation of modern architecture versus the heritage or the marvels of ancient architecture. I would also like to put a few slides with your permission and try to put up my take on what exactly I meant with these things, with your permission. So when we say Vadodara, I'll focus more onto the Vadodara part as the topic is more relevant or more for the Vadodara. When we say Vadodara, Vadodara itself has its two very important elements, for which it is known as Vadodara, is the Vad and the Lakshmi Vilas Palace. Now, look at the skyline and the majestic palace of His Highness Sir Sayaji Rao Gaekwad. Including many architectural marvels in the cityscapes, Vadodara, we got to learn about the security, services, and the best master planning of the city so far. So now taking the master class of Robert Chisholm, as Rahul very correctly said about the you can say the major architectural marvels done in Baroda. The native design style, which people are now trying to focus more. We can see in the images like the jalis, the pinnacles, and you can say the arches and the columns with the base and the capitals to make more basic architectural elements which are necessary to be inherited. So when we talk about the historical part and the modern architecture, we need to relate with the history which has been inherited since the years. Now, when we talk about arches, we always try to put up those typologies of arches in the openings, maybe the sloping roof, which has been followed through the ages, which is a part of our vernacular architecture. So but in contrast to that, there are few of the no personal grudges about that, no personal things about the modern architecture which is prevailing in the present Vadodara market. When we talk about modern architecture in conjunction to or marvels of historical designs, I have more apprehensions on the present designs and details of the building in and around Vadodara. Few are not given any importance with respect to the climate or with respect to the context where they are built and what would be the repercussion of those buildings related to surroundings. As we were taught and now we are teaching, we can say so, we need to understand the effect of global warming and its direct impact in the lifestyles and the need of individuals to the company. We must understand the need and the basic necessity before we put a single line on a sketchbook. Now, to coming back to the heritage or the conservation of those heritage properties or to the building which we design these days, for me, there is no need to propose any methodology or any process of conservations, but need to apply basic knowledge of cityscape inculcated when it was formed and just follow the fundamentals of it. That is what I would put it in my way. Now, to inculcate those, you can say fundamentals and the methodologies of conservation, we need to understand about the indigenous materials and craft. Now, are we still are we following those methodology? Are we looking into those architectural marvels or the integrated details of the brackets or the door hinges or the louvers of the windows or the doors, to which we connect to the climate or we connect to the surroundings? We need to put our brain together and look into the art and the hard work of the artisans which they have put in to create a marble building along with the designers. So my take on maybe role of an architect to look into the heritage or to conserve the building, I don't think there is any role to be played. It is just a sole responsibility which somebody has to take. And when somebody enters into architecture, he has been taught about the history of architecture. Why? Just to understand, just to make him feel that he is a responsible citizen. Then, after graduating, to to give something back to the society. So it is our sole responsibility of an architect to provide and encourage the cultural design and the principle of vernacular architecture in the better living. So few of the things which we have seen in Baroda, I think my fellow panelists will definitely agree about this marble structure and the detailings done with local materials. These are all buildings very well done by our founder designers over there. Some very interesting spaces done with all those indigenous detailings of different varieties of materials. Use of materials at different level makes a lot of sense, and we feel so proud, and it's our pride to be known as an Vadodara architects, right? And last but not the least, the palace. Whoever comes to Baroda never misses out looking at this master class, which is the you can say symbol of Vadodara. And I would also not like to go without saying that the place of the place to visit whenever you are in Baroda is the palace. I think I have made all my points.
Oh, wonderful, Mayor. I think I mean, I love this palace for sure, because I also have been in Baroda for 2 years. It's certainly a city that one, really grows on you. Both people are fabulous. They're very harmonious in culture. They're truly a very well cultured city, and leave alone, I mean, from architecture, it's a very rich city. And you rightly said that. I think as an architect, is our sole responsibility. Like how in profession of being a doctor, you take that over. It's like in architecture as well, that you will encourage cultural design. You will save the old building, the heritage part, and make it rich and more stronger. So let's hear from what Hitesh Bhai has to say on this. And I think viewers are simply loving it. And I think I'll encourage all our audience to put their questions in the Q&A column, and my colleague Nitali Kudekar, who's the editor for the magazine, will take it up. Yes, Hitesh Bhai.
Yeah, Bibhor. As I think is what a wonderful audience and the team from Baroda. We all guys, I think most of us graduated from MS University, old historical building of Baroda. Here I wish to share my screen and share how his overall growth as a sensitive architect has built us, and every small variety of projects, some 2-3 small, but the variation of projects, how it has helped us to develop an architect who can work on the contextual design and sensitively.
Sure.
These are small 3 examples I would like to share, which I come across in my practice, and eventually, though the varieties are different, your thought process remains the same, and it builds on a sensitive and emotional architectural practice. This was a project approached in 2013, and Jaquar, 100-year-old building owner approached us to design the interior. He said, "Sir, we would like you to design an interior for a footwear showroom." Surprisingly, the architecture part was a 100-year-old Jaquar building. And as an architect, we thought here the role is not an interior designer, but a conservation. I think our approach should be to give them back their pride, a building of 100-year-old they own. And simply, instead of adding, we thought of just restructuring the whole facade. Instead of adding any slabs or a false ceiling, it was a Jaquar slab. By removing lime plasters, the mezzanine slabs they used to cast to put their shoes. Just by here we understood as an architect, we are not supposed to add anything. We have to remove things and give glory back to the 100-year-old building. The Jaquar, by removing the slabs, give the volume, a natural original bricks which were been hidden in lime plaster and the slabs. Just let that be a backdrop, and a pride, you get it back without adding any additional interior elements or architectural other aspect of it. And surprisingly, when the project completed, the client, the 3rd generation client, he cried basically that they never knew that they have such a wonderful treasure. So sometimes as architects, you grow and understand that the project is not always what you are approached for. It's your approach as an architect that what should be your take on it. So very dear to our heart, this was a project in the city area. Again, on another scale of project, a meaningful public architecture, retrofit smart city, a 300-year-old Jaipur. We were supposed to design some 8-10 kilometers of area and the beautiful 7-8 city squares ranging from 30,000 to 1 lakh square feet, thought in 1700th century. Again, as an architect, the contextual, the approach was quite simple. As Indians, we have always abused the basic parking and the circulation services. So you have all consultant to work with you and give a direction to a project, retaining the basic material palette which is already available, and you have to restrict yourself within that material palette, associating with an artist, the fine artist who can bring joy into the space. So incorporating all these, this was not part of brief. We brought in all this artists and along with the architectural detailing, these all elements which has added joy into the space. And I believe without hindering or adding your unnecessary interventions, just to respecting what we have as an architect and try to restructure it with participation of a wonderful people or associates artists that we have given same Red Fort city of Jaipur with minimal intervention. Again, a third, absolutely a different project. A couple chartered accountant from Bombay wanted to shift to Baroda to connect with, to desire to connect with the nature and live their life. Again, a simple residential bungalow design with a vision of creating a wonderful backside common plot. And we thought of this a connecting wall along with the wonderful screen. That's a natural paintings basically. That's the first slide. That every day, every month, the season changes. You go around and you enjoy, celebrate to be in Baroda and connect with the nature. So minimal brief, what we understood, the desire for a couple who's already a chartered accountant settled in Bombay, desire to have a wonderful life. And as an architect, what else you can do? Try to design a place where he don't need to connect, take efforts, but every corner or every moment of his life is connected to nature through these wonderful window which connects throughout the staircase. So I believe these few projects, I'm trying to convey that as architects, sometimes it's not the conventional formal brief or the requirements you follow. It's the context, the reason, the overall, first of all, find the reason behind designing a project. And then the context, obviously, if you understand the gist of a requirement of a project, you are done. And that's a humble approach, which I have shared in all these 3 different projects I have shared with you.
No, thank you. I think, Hitesh, this is wonderful. Can you please stop sharing the screen? I think, it's a very, very practical and a very logical approach, Hitesh, what I saw. I mean, you said first you need to have the gist and the reason to do that. And once you have that, and I think the contextual part will be taken care. So I think very brilliant. And I think the couples from Mumbai would simply love that. I love that bungalow. I love that, book there, especially that, that small windows, which had a beautiful view to outside. Very beautiful. Dharabai wanted to bring you in very quickly and then get Dipen. Dipen, I'll come back with. He's in Kerala with a very low bandwidth, but nonetheless, that's over here from what Dharam has to say and show. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Bibhor. I thank all the panelists for having me here, and I would like to say my hello to all the delegates who are attending this session. And I would like to just bring you a gist of things which I understood from the subject, and would like to share my screen whereby I can show some of those. What I understand from the subject given to us and my understanding of the terminology that old is gold, and then it is applied to architecture. I say that rightfully said that old is gold, and it stands true for various reasons, not only architecture, but for architecture as well. So the evolution of architecture actually dates with the evolution of mankind, right from caves to castles. So when we go ahead, like architecture, as human beings travel through the time, architecture also has been influenced by various cultures and traditions throughout this history of mankind. So when we talk about, we take an example that, we always relate something with small examples, and then, we can look at the macro level of it. So every city, every town, every development in the world has this kind of a process where it has been developed to this date. So Baroda also, if we begin with, it was a very small, kind of a village, which we call today as a kota. And it was dated back in 5th and 6th century, right? So now, at that time, the architectural influences were influences from more or less the Jainism period. And then it has been, influenced by various different rulers and their different styles, like the Chalukyas, the Guptas, and the Solankis. Later on, it was, taken over by the Mughals from the 13th to 17th century. And then we had those kind of influences as well. So now the architecture keeps on traveling the time and the styling and, all the kind of phases it passes through, it takes on. And from the 17th to 1947, the Marathas ruled this city, and it brought in all these various different, their own styles and fantastic architecture, and even they intermingled the styles carried from the British architects, and that kind of legacy was taken over. And we are very thankful to all the rulers of this period, whereby we enjoy the fantastic, architecture we have been born with, and we have touched it, and we have gone through this. So if we talk about the architecture of Baroda, it is very eclectic. It stands tall, and it is very special to us. So these all are the buildings which relate to us in our old memories, and still they are, kind of conserved today, because I've been with the conservation team I've been so lucky with working with Mr. Karan Grover and their conservation team. And we used to work for heritage, for Chapanir and those things as well. So what the zest of is that everything passes through the time, and even architecture, people, everything. But the only thing, one thing remains constant is place and the climate. The constant things are these. So if you see the timeline, the bottom line, everything has passed through everything. But this is what we need. We are the most concerned as an architect. We respect these in any style, any influences, because every day we change. We have to change. So if you talk about heritage and preservation, it is an investment to our community that rewards us today and leaves an invaluable resources for the future generations. That's true, because we do have our roots, and we would like to stick to our roots so that we can push our developments further up. Perhaps the most significant reason behind heritage preservation is to acknowledge the buildings and the importance and keep it alive for future generations. We need to do this. We need to have our histories bonded with us. We are born from the ground, and we would like to stick to the ground. And in terms of heritage areas, the need of area of rehabilitation and reverted approaches are a typical urban issue. Essential qualities of historic areas and life of this community residing there, but which can also adapt. Now, these all areas need to change their identity, the use, and still stay with us in the new urban fabric. So what I would like to say in this, that what are my learnings? So in all these celebrated buildings, we had one thing in common. So that was the vernacular practices in architecture, where the use of local materials, expansive courtyards, verandas, pavilions, chhatris, jalis, overwork screens, jalokas, overhang, shady devices, light and ventilation. So any style of architecture that came in always, interpreted their style, keeping and respecting these values in mind. So in these elements, the preliminary concern was to practice architecture using local know-how, which we have been proven through the time and sustained ages of change. Understanding these practices, transforming them towards the need of the day, and evolving the same for the future is the process, I think, which would bring better results. In simple geometric terms, I always relate this that the process of evolution of architecture is like meeting the points. So it's like you have some points of the past, you align them with the present, and then you can predict the future. So this is where all this heritage is so useful. It's the wealth, it's the gold, what we can say, we have, and we can use it the best way we can. So if we deeply understand this, these practices will automatically lead us to coherent and sustainable living. Rather than importing styles, importing, kind of architectural kind of influences, we do change, but along with the lines of the place and the climate. So those are the things which we need to align, and then we can, be influenced and we can go into the future. So this is my understanding of being in Baroda, being with this fantastic architecture, and going along in the future.
Wow, very nice. Absolutely. Love the passion behind. And I think you really said, we really need to take points from the past, align with the present, and do something which is more predictive. And I think it's important that place and climate one has to. Varun, can you stop sharing the screen?
Yeah. Just I'm trying to stop share. Yeah, fantastic.
No, absolutely. It's good to see you back, And you were like on a song, and I could see that passion coming, and that whole thing from Baroda, and very truly it stems out from your work. And let me get my friend Dipen as well. He's remotely, and I don't think Dipen you'll have much to show, but we are all very keen to listen to you. So yes, Dipen, what's your take? In terms of the topic itself, and what do you feel? And then I come to you, Ruchika, after Dipen.
Yeah. Thanks, Bibhor, and nice to see everyone's presentation. In fact, there is no need of more presentation because almost everything has been covered well. Only heartburning nowadays, and that is why the topic, which is really interest to me as well, just because though we have fantastic, rich heritage culture, and what we have is a treasure with almost all the city of India. Unfortunately, our cities have been lost in terms of the character. If you go to particular historical sites of each city, you will understand that okay, this is what the local flavor is. Unlike you travel to the typical, from the station area, railway station, or to airport, and you reach to any particular place, if you are not coming across any historical place which is real heritage, which has been treasure to us by our maharajas, and many structures are from the British government, you cannot understand that which particular city it is. Unlike few cities like Jaipur or Jodhpur, or very few cities. And that is what is the pain to each city. And what we are talking about the future, as Dharam rightly said, that everything we can't adopt the architecture from heritage in terms of material, in terms of stone, or in terms of style. We can, but it is not so practical in each project. So we have to certainly move forward with the newer technology and newer style and the need of the time. But as a designer, I believe that we as a designer, influencer designer, has to get together and understand and limitizing ourselves to certain fundamental material, which in totality or in comprehension, they give a certain palette of fabric to the cities. And that is what we can see in many of the work of Hitesh, Rahul, Mayur, Dharam, everyone, because almost I think we are on the same page. At least certain things which is we can say as a exposed brick or exposed concrete or the cladding of stone in certain aspect. But in totality, unfortunate part is aluminum composite panel. I think ACP has raped our all the cities. Nowadays, if you can see the influence of ACP is almost been it has been raped by, because you do fast construction, you do typical structure, and then you have to just cover it with this very very easily available material in whatever is the fancy way you want it to do. And if you can see the life after 5 7 years, it is nowhere. We are lending to nowhere. So we as a designer, I believe that we have to be very strict about ourselves, that what we should use in terms of final outcome, whatever we are giving. No doubt the best of the architectural science which been already we are studying in our past, and that is what we are adopting, like the courtyards and the jalis and and the openings and the air ventilation and the local climatic details. That is what I believe that every sensible designer are using individually in their project, and that is really 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 good, and that is been followed by many young designer and many other people commonly. But in general, which one photograph which has been shown by Dharam for the Mandvi, old heritage Mandvi, if you can see that photograph and if you can see that, the current situation of Mandvi, I mean, in Baroda, each and every small shop wanted to, pop up in terms of बाजू वाले से हमारा कुछ दिखना चाहिए, and then they try to squeeze or I mean play with anything which is viable, non-viable. And if you can go right now to the Mandvi, you cannot even have a feel of any the rich heritage what we were having. Rightly, like Hitesh, what he has done in Jaipur, and that is what been tried at a number of other areas, like in Agra, been done by Saurabh Gupta and many influential people. And what they have done is, and they have tried and they have presented that at least the materially that particular area can be, have harmony, the similar fabric. If it is Agra stone, then it has been, been placed everywhere, that Agra stone in a different ways, in a newer technology. But at least the harmony of that particular area has been developed, or the certain areas been developed by Bimal Patel in Ahmedabad, CG Road, and in a modern way it has been done. But at least they have tried and they have created certain level of harmony, and that is what I believe that as a designer, influensive designer, we people has to get together in on one platform where we can discuss and we can actually work out on certain level of material or certain level of architecture details that mean giving the harmony. I'm not saying the freedom of design should be everywhere, because the time and the context and the requirement of the client is been always driven with the design. So design has been driven with the context and the requirement of the client, but at least we can work out on certain harmony. We also, unfortunately, I have nothing to share right now, just because of I'm remotely operating from my office. Nevertheless, we also have tried, and there are certain things to show. But right now, the almost every panelist what they have showed and shared is really enough for the discussion of the day. But my concern is, and then my request is to the fellow designer, and there is one more group of young designer, and then at least we should have constant dialogue between us, which enable us to land up with certain level of ideas which give the harmony or certain level of jest of the city, which if you can develop. There is certain tribe in happened in terms of development of railway station of Baroda, or other area, I mean the bus station. But unfortunately, I don't know the people who are involved and how the designer has been involved. So, to put certain level of trees on facade or certain level of jali of facade, and that can't work in terms of bringing back or imitating the past, and that will look more funnier than what it is actual. Rather not to attempt such kind of things, but at least there should be some sensitivity. And unfortunately, we are bound with the system of the government and the style of working, because the tender and the passing process is different, and the PPP model is came into picture, and which is working with the favorable kind of situations, and that is what is making our cities a little more worse than what it was. But fortunately, there are many hopes and there are many shines in number of cities, even in Baroda. I mean, I must say one thing in terms of effort from Modi Srivastava, that at least they have given the green pattern or the compound wall pattern to certain buildings, and that is been adopted from the Maharaja Gaikwad's, I mean, the uh, palace compound wall. And fortunately, government has had somebody had the sense, and they were trying to repeat all similar kind of compound wall with the brick and the the typical Gaikwadi grill and the emblem and the lamp. So at least certain kind of sensitivity has been started, and that has been reflected. So at least you pass through certain area and you feel like, yes, this is what the Baroda culture is. So I think the small such kind of efforts is also making a lot of difference to our overall cities, and we have to really look forward, because otherwise we will be in the mesh, because there is no fun. Like when you go to Europe, there is always a character which connect you. But in our Indian cities, the character has been lost in general. In general, the people are now looking at the malls only and the certain areas. So this is what I say about we have to be sensible enough in
True.
further work to come up.
No, thank you, Dipen. I think I really understand you're feeling very emotional about the way the city is going through, and it loses its character. And obviously, one has to be sensitive, and the dialogues like this has to go. And with the young architects also coming together, one needs to collaborate, ideate, and bring forward what you really want, and keep the harmony, as you rightly said, that you do the design, but keep in harmony, in tandem with the trend, and yet remain contextual. I think we heard from the designer perspective, and Ruchika, who's a little under the weather, but Ruchika, I just wanted to come and understand, because Jaquar has a strong history, and we are celebrating 60 years. And we heard all our lovely designers talking about what the city has to hold and how they really protected, the rich heritage, and yet remain contextual. I just wanted to check on Jaguar perspective, especially one such range, which I also really love it and marvel it, and it's is one of our in our restrooms. This is the Queen series from Jaguar. People who have not seen, it's really a treat. The Queen series from Jaguar Group is a hallmark of design excellence. How do you see Queen's Prime as a signature new launch, similarly enhancing timelessness to creative design in genuinity? It's a beautiful product. So you would like to share? Richard?
Yeah, it is. And very good evening to all, first of all. And thank you so much for sharing such an informative, projects and heritage of the Baroda culture. And I'm overwhelmed that we'll start with little brief about Jaguar Group, which has been into design and manufacturing marvel not only in complete bathroom and lighting solutions, but Jaguar Group bears a significant foothold in 51 plus nations globally. So as we talk about Timeless Queen series, as you rightly said, has actually is a hallmark of design excellence, and it has won hearts of many and ruled among forces for almost 3 decades. For you all to know, and since inception, you can say, and it was destined to rule. Uh, Uday Vilas Palace is one of the iconic project which has timeless Queen's range in its fold for more than 2 decades. The majestic legacy is now passed on to new generation with a new avatar, new look, with same royal elegance designed for the new generation as Queen's Prime. Inspired by Victorian era, this authentic antique style collection represents a very essence of remarkable age in history. It takes you back in time. This is about the new Queen's Prime, which I'm talking about. As the thoughts flow with a quaint and beautifully crafted combination of purposeful, modern, minimalistic functionality. This Queen's Prime has this femininity of slender body, royal elegance, and fluid design, which epitomizes elite, royal, classy, contemporary, clean line, and stylish decadence. Surely enhancing timelessness to creative design, ingenuity, in congruence with Queen's range. And I surely believe that this will be again a success, and it complements and achieves a fine balance of between the materials and the textures, and makes it stands apart for its aesthetic appeal. Queen's Prime, again, I'll say it's an array of function technical advantages. All of these are characterized by under appellation from famous English royal households like Balmoral, Hampton, Buckingham, Windsor, and Osborne. It is already a winner. It surely has all the parameters, ensuring this range to be designer's delight. And I would like to conclude with our tagline, which encompass proudly made in India for the world, which says it all. And I leave you thinking that why made in India, but I ask you why not made in India. So this is what I would say for Queen's Prime. I'm sure you're going to like this range, which is a delight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruchika. Definitely, we will try, and I am definitely loving it. And I want to bring my editor in. Mithali, can you just come up, surface on the screen, please?
Hi.
Hi, Mithali. I'm getting a lot of questions on the WhatsApp here from the architect.
Me
I don't
too.
know. I've been reminding to post it on the Q&A.
Yes.
So can you just take
We
up the
actually have
question?
Sure, we have some in the Q&A, but I have some on WhatsApp as well.
So I forwarded all the questions that have been sent by architect friends to you.
Yes,
So can you take
yes.
the questions? Yeah.
I'm going to, because it's always nice to have a perspective from the audience and hear from them on what they want to ask. So first, I'm going to start with this one. This is very interesting, and it's something that a lot of you are going to find interesting, because it says often clients want an international looking building. How can we as architects influence their decision in favor of more contextually relevant designs? Any of you want to take this up? Hitesh is smiling. I'm going to start with you, Hitesh. How do you convince your clients?
Every time the client approach, I believe it needs a lot of giving an insight to them. I have a very small example of a footwear showroom I have shared.
Yes.
The guy having 100-year-old building was not knowing that you own a big 100-year-old building as a treasure. He came and said that, sir, the same way Dipen said, that sir, आप facade कुछ कर दीजिए, कुछ भी आए. We are interested to do a interesting interior of this project. आप बढ़िया सा interior कर दीजिए. We understood that Jacquard's floor is not nowadays made. Those days the slab was not invented. 100 years back, instead of RCC slab, the entire slab was casted with that Jacquard brick. And that's a treasure. And the guy didn't know, the client himself. So the fourth generation came, we graduated, we educated them that you have a treasure, and believe me, allow us to do. Once it is done, this showroom won't be there. Similar showroom you won't find anywhere in the city. And believe me, the grandfather, on the inaugural day, he said, sir, मुझे आपको जूता पहनाना है. It's a ritual. He cried that I never knew that I own such a wonderful building, and you brought my dignity back. And he cried and made us. He gave his first footwear to me. So that's, I believe, as an architect, it's our role that they all come up with a lot of, because of exposure, a lot of media. They all want, they have seen, and they will try to ask what they have seen. But yes, it's our duty to bring that consciousness to them that
Absolutely.
what is right.
Absolutely. It's about consciousness. I absolutely agree. What a wonderful story that is. Speaking of that, if you can sort of share, that's one example. Deepti M has asked on the chat, could you elaborate on some successful examples of contemporary architecture in Baroda? So you obviously answered. I think Dipen also brought in some of them. Anybody else wants to share a perspective on something that's contemporary, but still has been successfully done, you feel? Rahul, do you want to perhaps take this one?
Well, it's difficult to name a few, but there have been instances wherein the fabric of Baroda has been nicely, you can say, incorporated in structures. Something that comes to my mind is one done by Aniket Bhagwat, a building called Arc, wherein there's a nice collaboration between art and architecture, wherein the fabric of Baroda, which is wood, has been nicely, you can't say embossed, but inlaid in concrete, and everything is done on the basis of a banyan tree and the branches. It's a nice depiction. The building works nicely as an office building, a very contemporary office building, I may say, but the fabric is quite grounded. So it does have a nice contemporary look to it.
Right.
Without forgetting about the facades, without forgetting about the restricted excessive light that needs to come in, the control light which comes in, a good mixture of art which Baroda is famous for. So I think that does come to my mind at this point of time.
Yeah, that's great.
Can I add something?
Yeah. Please, absolutely.
There is one more building done by Yashwant Mistry sir at Old Path Road, building for Times of India. Actually, that doesn't gel with the modernistic, you can say, the facades or the fabric of construction onto that line. But that still stands out because his style of architecture is more towards using the sustainable material and giving the best of the details. As the vernacular or the heritage type of architecture. So that also could be one fabric which can be considered for.
Sure. And all of you, please feel free to jump in. I'm just trying to, take in as many questions as possible. So posing one to each of you. I'm going to come to the next one. So we just spoke about the architecture and the structure.
Dipen was trying to say something.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Dipen.
Unmute your mic, Dipen.
I wanted to add one building which was really good. In fact, which was really good because and the Baroda's airport, which was fantastically designed with the heritage style and the domes and the culture, and not 100%. The way interior has been done is all rubbish, but not an issue. It could be even better. But the earlier airport of Baroda, which was fantastic, and nowadays in the run of lot of new airport to develop and all glass facades and all modern style and details, which has been vanished. Nowadays it is unutilized building, and now the new airport came up with facing to east and west, and I don't know what all calculations behind that, we never understand. But some sensible person could have been enhanced the old building, increase the size and increase the need and everything. They could have actually done it much better, which is actually representing to our culture and the city. I believe that every city, like I've been to Cochin and we landed up in the Cochin, and then if you can see, they have done a little bit of local culture, and it is actually reflecting the Kerala.
Yes.
Not 100%, but at least some sort of characters are there. This is what we are missing with. So we were having good airport. There was limited size, and that is what they could have enhanced. But unfortunately, the new airport came up with it is stereotype of all newer style of buildings, which is really unfortunate.
Yes, I think that's a problem. When we try to do bigger, better, we kind of lose sense of our of what is really important. And that kind of brings me to the next question as well. You mentioned interiors. Yashvi Shah, wants to know. Apart from civil buildings, aren't we forgetting to incorporate the sense of roots of our culture in our residences as well, and also in the interiors, of our homes? Who would like to sort of take this? Any
Actually, we are not. Actually, we are not forgetting. We are still in the race, or probably with a set of mind that we don't want to forget, or we don't want our clients to uh, live in those modernistic type of interiors or architecture. We still incorporate art. We still incorporate local help of local artisans to
elements? Yeah.
develop certain elements. So I don't believe into that. I still work hard. I still strive to find out good art installer, or probably good art designer who can enhance my concept of design, for that
Yes.
matter. Be it onto the stone, be it onto the wall, be it onto the ceiling, or maybe a piece of a furniture, for that matter. So
Right.
that's what I understand.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Anybody else wants to take this?
I think in interior, I think many of us and everyone is using rather small or in a big way, but mostly people are really sensitive, at least after a point, after
Sure.
a lot of experience and stuff like that. And the people on the panel, if you can see, almost everyone work, which is actually respecting the Indianness
Yes.
of design in most of the projects, and that is what the beauty of this thing. So as far as interior is concerned, I'm sure we are quite comfortable as far as architecture is concerned, and in a mass, in a smaller way, many people are using, and people are sensible enough to use the at least the sense of architecture, and not exactly the way it has been reflected or imitated, but at least the ethos of that particular era is
Sure.
adopted. But in interiors, yeah, people are quite open and doing
Sure.
pretty good.
I hope that answers Yashvi's question. This is an interesting one. One problem that we see is that not enough is being done to preserve historic monuments, the actual preservation and restoration, and also to educate our future generation of architects and designers about them. Should we not be teaching students more about our design heritage so that they can benefit from it and possibly use this knowledge in their future designs? Are we doing enough in terms of education and passing on that knowledge? Who would like to take this?
I'd like
I
to
think
take this one. Yeah, I'd like to take this one.
Sure.
So now, to my understanding, all the heritage buildings, there are different categories of heritage buildings. Like we have some of them which are very special ones, which we would like to keep it intact, and there are certain which are some things which would like the people to explore. So if you see the worldwide, practices or experiments with this kind of architecture, if you say that if you see the walking streets of various cities, those are like
Yep.
our poles and the downtown and the walled area architecture, right? So the idea is that all the buildings of the heritage should be, with a purpose. If we do it with a purpose, rather than locking them down and making them, kind of uh, what we can say, non-usable areas, it should be transforming into this particular time. So then only we can keep it up with our people. If we keep it locked and keep it, it is going to go away sooner or later. The idea is that we have to work in such a way that it becomes part of the new generations as well. So it may
Sure.
change the use, change the purpose, but it still remains. So those kind of stuff needs to be worked on.
Sure. Anybody wants to add to this one?
Yeah, similar, as rightly said, Dharam. Recently, the unfortunate part is we have new buildings come up because of the expansion and the requirements. The new court building has come up in Baroda, and we have Nyay Mandir, almost 170-year-old building,
Yes.
old court building. The bricks were being imported from Belgium. I visited the brick factory to understand that how it is sustained so old. Unfortunate part is now if the port is already shifted, the old building 170 years mid of the city, still at night we would love to go and explore the way we see the fort and all the areas. These buildings are there, but unfortunately if it is not preserved or found its new role in the context, it will not in fact, and if you really find it a new role, it will be a building which will definitely teach all of us. It has a roof tile, Nalia, the typical Mangalore tile, sustained for 170 years.
Right.
So I think that's what we have to find out the new purpose for all such wonderful buildings. They already exist.
Right. Right. I think there's not much time left to take too many questions, but if anybody wants to tackle the education part of it before I give it back to Bibhor, Rahul, would you want to have a go at that one?
Well, I was just going to mention that when we find the incoming generation who needs to be technically adapt to basic architecture, I think conservation is the next step. I sincerely believe that the present generation needs to really invest time in technical know-hows. They are superb in terms of presentations and all the techniques which are there, but I see that with the dearth or with the excessive colleges, reduction in the knowledge level of the faculty, the knowledge of a graduate is becoming little to sustain themselves in the present market. They really need to take a lot of experience before they open shop. And this is a very serious concern because what is happening is that we are flooded with architects. In Baroda, at least we have 9 to 10 colleges now. We have, say, 4,000 students coming out of graduation only in Tamil Nadu, just in one state.
Right.
What happens is that we talk about big things about conservation, heritage, and all these things. Everyone is inquisitive how we can understand that. But I sincerely feel that there is a long way before the basics of architecture could also be understood. So I urge all the participants who are young to invest their time in learning the basics of architecture very, very strongly before you move on to the other aspects of architecture. I think there's a huge amount of learning which is yet pending before they open shop. And it's a very, very sincere observation which we all would be seeing because we all keep on employing younger people and we all keep on thinking that hamara time alag tha. This time is very different. The time of softwares, new know-hows, but technicalities don't get replaced. You need to be technically correct to execute anything. New softwares will help you think, but not to indigenously think about improvisations. And India is a land of jugaad. At the end of the day, we need to find our own solutions. We cannot go on the expensive preset solutions which the vendor is giving. At the end of the day, when your basic cost of construction can't go beyond 2,000 rupees a square feet, where in US it is $5,000 a square feet. So you still need to do a lot of things to keep the budgets in check, which can only happen by good amount of technical know-how. I think that's a very serious matter, and the younger generation has it in their own hands to
Very sound knowledge, Rahul. Sound advice, Rahul. I'm sure everybody's taking note. I think Mayur wants to add something here.
Yeah, just to take it further about the technical know-how, but same to the young generation, just follow and do read the maquets of Hamare Zamane Ki Baat because it has got all the technical details. These days they don't read, they just Google it out. And at some point of time, Google doesn't help them to understand the line between the lines, the code between the lines. So the young generation, whoever is graduating or is pursuing architecture, is strongly recommended to go to the Bibles of old construction technologies and techniques to which the master class has evolved so far.
Yeah, wonderful. I think with that, I'll pass it back to Bibhor.
Yeah. Thank you. I think this was actually, I was trying to take this was the last one, but Rahul said you said it so very well. I mean, I was just saying Baroda since I've been there for 2 years. It's a great seat of learning. It turns out amazing, architecture every, students every year. I mean, has got the best of SEPT and even the, your own university in Baroda. But let me just take another question now. What is the one message that each one of you would like to give to the rest of the country? As a architects from Baroda, and maybe we could start with Dipen first. I'll repeat the question again. Dipen, one like a 30-second or a 40-second kind of a message that you would like to give to the rest of the country, the designers of the country, what they can take a learning out of Baroda and Baroda designers. Your mic, please. Dipen, your mic. Dipen, unmute your mic. Yeah.
I think it should start with myself to implement the strong heritage into design. Number one. Number two is get united, keep ego aside, but get united in terms of local architects, influential architects, come on a board and have vigorous dialogue between each other that what we should do. I mean, rather to give advice to everyone, better we should implement ourselves, because now there is a phase where we can definitely make a change.
Okay.
So the message for ourselves, first of all.
So Dipen twisted it and he said the message for within fellow architects. Now you would
No,
like to say
I
something?
mean, yeah, we all.
No, it's
should
okay. It's
get-
okay.
Yeah.
I think first do it our homework at our end, then probably give a message. But people out in the audience, please take your learning from here. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, respect the heritage, because that is not only aesthetic. There is lot of science, there is lot of study, and there is lot of passion which has gone into, and which actually built your cities, which actually give character to the cities, and that is what one should respect. Don't blindly follow the West, and the technology and everything is good, but don't blindly follow them.
Don't blindly follow. Mayur, yeah.
Yes, sir. The basic instinct, whatever you're taught about in the school days or the college days about the history and the architecture part, you need to follow. You need to understand the fundamentals and apply. It is not necessary always to have modernistic building, which is you can say non-functional or maybe sometime non-functional. But yes, vernacular architecture always makes sense on a larger platform. So follow your instinct.
Follow your instinct. Modiji, you, what's your message, sir?
I think a good architect is basically a most sensitive human being and a fortunate guy who transforms his human experiences, he visualizes and try to leave a mark behind. What we are doing is not for only my project or my client, it's for the society, the context, and for years to come, we all should take a pride about what is being done by us. In that consciousness, we keep always whenever we try to work as an architect. That will define our cities.
True.
That's the message.
Sure. Dhiren,
Yes, thank you, Bibhor. Now I'll come back. There are two aspects of this, and first I do agree with Dipen Bhai that since we are practicing architecture right now, predominantly in this area, and we have been influenced by this fantastic, architecture legacy that has been given to us. So we should be conscious enough to understand the ethics and then keep it into practice, so that people who would be looking at us start following the same. So we make a precedent out of this. Secondly, if you talk about I'll come back to the topic, which is heritage. So the heritage, what we have is like a live library. The university which has the best library are the best universities in the world. And the whole of India has the best library of the world, if we talk about our heritage. So if we keep on visiting these places, revisiting them, understanding them, it actually, creates a fantastic foundation for ourselves to build on. So I have spent thousands of hours sketching into this, monumental architecture, and I've spent my college into it, like, studying in Baroda High School, studying in MSU, those kind of stuff is like you have been touched with. So I think that this, anywhere, I can relate it to any city as well. It's not only Baroda. So anybody from any place, India has these live libraries, which we can bank on anytime to put our future through. So those kind of things I would like to, I have the essence of the whole discussion is that we get on to our heritage for our future.
Excellent. Rahul, your parting shots on this one.
Well, I have a different take. I think we all as architects are not supposed to emulate or mimic. We are supposed to create something original. And I have a big advocate of ethical practices and originality. We in the times of Pinterest and house and whatnot things, drawing inspiration is one thing, mimicking the other is an absolutely opposite of what you're supposed to do ethically. We are in a time wherein very few practices like us remain who actually believe in each and everything and creating original stuff, not selecting photographs and getting it done at site. The newer generations that comes out from each office obviously is following what that office has done. And this actually over a period of time leads to practices which are thinking about faster execution, where yesterday's execution is better, and creativity against the speed of execution is always going to be the test of time. Also think that as the prerogative mimic something that is somebody else's original creation. I think even in today's world, when the clients come with their Pinterest shots or with something that they have liked and they ask that this is what we want to do, and if you think that's a shortcut of getting away or not making them earn of things, I think you are not giving proper justice to the profession or the white collared profession that you have been opportuned with. We are less than 0.1% of the professionals in this world, and we should really be thankful that this is a big opportunity. If you copy paste, it's very easy to know these days. Earlier times, the copyrights of a song were never known. Like Beatles song used to get copied, but nobody knew. But in today's world, the moment you copy, you are able to relate because world has become very, very small these days. So we being on the awards committee for years, we are able to see what kind of entries come, who is doing original work, who is not doing original work, and it is there to be seen. So getting inspired and actually mimicking, these are two things. There's a very thin line, but that line is very evident. So I think heritage also talks about getting inspired. It doesn't talk of mimicking. Like I showed in my slides also, if you have a structure which is old and you're creating something new, it can be in glass, but the fabric language may remain the same. In the same way, remaining original, I think so, is the hallmark of remaining a good architect and doing ethical practices.
Wonderful. What do I say? I'm speechless, Rahul. I mean, you really nailed it. I mean, so absolutely. This is the way people, especially the young students there, you must listen and hear every word that Rahul said. Before I end up, let me get my friend Ruchika. Do you want to say something, Ruchika? Unmute yourself for a minute. And anything that you want to kind of convey a message to the world of Jaguar Group, which we are so proud of. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ruchika.
yeah. Thank you once again, and yes, so inspiring. Such wonderful messages, which I also got to know from this all these amazing designers and architects here. The only thing I can say is Jaguar, any which way, it has celebrated 60 years and has a mark globally, and has a footprints globally in 51 plus countries, and is has 5 state-of-art manufacturing units, and is keep on delivering whatever we have, like faucets, we have shower enclosures, we have this complete bathroom range what we have. And this group truly believes in the best of the quality and the processes and the manufacturing, which is again wonderful um, um, thing which is delivering time and again. And we strive for unmatched excellence by continuous raising our standards and expecting to achieve the impossible. So thank you once again.
Well, thank you. And I think it has been one marathon evening, and I think we are all eager to break in for a weekend. But ladies and gentlemen, a big thanks to our lovely audience who stood with us. And I think that's clearly it's a testimony that you really enjoyed listening to this amazing speakers from Baroda who truly bring us a lot of pride and a lot of cheers to us. And I want to immensely thank on behalf of Jaguar Group, Architect Interiors India, part of ITP Media Group, my colleagues in ITP, and my wonderful partner Jaquar and Ruchika and Mohit and all the people behind the show, Rohan and everybody, for helping us to co-create and put together such a lovely evening of discussion with the one of the India's most respected, and I love the way you talk. I love the way you are passionate. I love to see the energies in you. What you talk is so simple, but you're so engaging. It leaves a huge impact on each one of us. And I think Dipenji said, strong heritage, get united, vigorous dialogues, respect heritage, lot of scrutiny, passion, respect. I think yes, everything. Then I think Hitesh said basic instinct, follow your heart, basic instinct. How much I agree. Fundamentals, buildings, vernacular architecture, and it shows in your work. Then when you said more sensitive human being, leave a mark behind, pride. you should do and you should leave a pride, which I always tell my editors and all my colleagues, do stories, do write something which leaves a great impact, behind. And so I think truly I agree what you mean to say. Dharam said, it's a, indeed, full of ethics. And I love the live library that you can bank on. Truly, India is definitely an ocean of library. And if you just keep visiting your library, you would really come out with the best designs. And lastly, but not the least, Rahul said, and how much I love this as well, originality. Guys, he said a very powerful message to the young minds. You must adhere to it. You really want to become a successful designer going forward. Original. Don't mimic. I mean, don't just talk. Don't do just, what do I say? Keep like a tribal chest thumping, heritage, but you don't do anything. I hope, Rahul, I'm just trying to, elaborate what you said in the last. You really have to put your soul in it, a passion in it, and then only, आप कहते हैं ना, दिल से करोगे तो चीज आएगी. Just don't do for the heck of it. Don't get in this mad race in the world that I will finish the project, the whole construction cycle, but I will, in the process, I will lose the creativity. I will lose the originality. I may win the client, but that's not it is, because there is a lot of ownership that the architects carry on themselves. Well, we can't blame you. We love you as an architect, but make sure that you bring in a lot of responsibility as the citizen of the country, as the citizen of the city. The joy of the city rests in your hands in many, many ways. So Rahul, absolutely 100%. And I believe a genuine currency, originality to that I relate, a genuine currency will always be genuine. Ladies and gentlemen, on that genuine part, I want to thank each one of you for being with us, for sharing your valuable time. And I hope you found this session as exciting, as informative, as much as I loved it. Thank you from all of us here. I wish everyone a very lovely weekend ahead. And may God give us some time to visit this beautiful and wonderful and a cultural city called Vadodara. Thank you once again. Bye for now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali.